Folks, welcome back to Chris Wyatt. This is Colonel Retired Chris Wyatt, U.S. Army, reporting with an update on day 12 of the Ukraine situation after Russia invaded nearly 2 weeks ago. We will find every bastard, Ukrainian President Zelinsky warns. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelinsky delivered an impassioned nightly address to his nation this evening, warning Russian troops he will punish those who committed atrocities in Ukraine, while the only quiet place that awaits them is the grave. This bombastic speech is not exactly something that's going to convince the Russians it's time to give up. Today is Forgiveness Sunday, but we will not forgive hundreds and hundreds of victims, thousands and thousands of sufferings, and God will not forgive, not today, not tomorrow, never. Instead of forgiveness, there will be a day of judgment, Zelinsky said. We will not forgive the destroyed houses. We will not forgive the missile that our air defense shot down over Okhmat today. More than 500 other such missiles that hit our land all over Ukraine, hit our people and children. We will not forgive the shooting of unarmed people, destruction of our infrastructure. We will not forgive hundreds and hundreds of victims, thousands and thousands of sufferings, and God will not forgive, not today, not tomorrow, never. And instead of forgiveness, there will be a day of judgment, I'm sure of it. He warned Russian forces they would face that day of judgment for the deliberate murder inflicted upon his country. Strong words from Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelinsky, nearly 2 weeks into the conflict. Australia's Prime Minister Scott Morrison calls on China to stop Russia. China must act on its declarations of promoting world peace and join the effort to stop Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Australia's Prime Minister said today, warning that the world was in danger of being reshaped by an arc of autocracy that starts in Canberra, Scott, and moves to Melbourne in Victoria State, and from there slides on over to Wellington under Jacinda Ardern, and finds its way to the capital of Canada in Ottawa, and doesn't stop there. You worried about an arc of autocracy? Look around the so-called Anglo-Saxon democratic world. Reuters reports that Morrison also suggests in a wide-ranging speech that Russia's invasion was not going according to the plan of its leader, Vladimir Putin, who said he overestimated the capacity of how he might be able to prosecute this illegal war. Once again, folks, I caution you not to fall in line for the pundits and be patient when you assess what's going on here. I have accurately predicted an operational pause several days ago as Russian forces seek to cut off Ukrainians. As long as they hold out in the salients in the northeast and in the southeast of the country, then the Russian forces won't be able to link up and this thing will be delayed. But until we get to 30 days of an offensive, it's not really time to say it's going behind schedule unless you have the battle plan of Russian forces, which we do not have, or the intent inside the mind of Vladimir Putin, which we lack. Morrison said China has long claimed to have a role as one of the major powers in the world and to be a contributor to global peace and stability. No country will have a bigger impact on concluding this terrible war in Ukraine than China, Morrison said in a response to a question after a speech at the Lowy Institute think tank. Well, it's not just Oz that's bringing sanctions. New Zealand brings Russia's sanctions bill forward. Ava Corlett in Wellington reports that New Zealand will pass a law this week that will significantly ramp up its sanctions against Russia, including preventing those sanctioned from moving assets to New Zealand and stopping Russian super yachts from entering the waters. Whoa, that's going to end the war. Stealing yachts from oligarchs is not going to end the war. The sanction bill is the first of its kind in New Zealand and the country's next step in its response to the Russian invasion. A bill of this nature has never been brought before our parliament, but with Russia vetoing UN sanctions, we must act ourselves to support Ukraine and our partners in opposition to this invasion, Jacinda Ardern, the prime minister, said. Country minister responded to the invasion of Ukraine with targeted travel bans, prohibited exports to the Russian military. Why were you exporting things to the Russian military to begin with, New Zealand, and suspending bilateral foreign ministry consultations? The United States apparently has provided President Zelensky with encrypted communications equipment and a direct line to Joe Biden, according to the New York Times. Intelligence officials in Washington and Germany are sending satellite photographs and electronic intercepts of Russian military units to Ukrainian military units within an hour or two. As he tries to stay out of the hands of Russian forces, Kiev President Zelinsky of Ukraine travels with encrypted communications equipment provided by the Americans that can put him into a secure call with Biden. Well, I don't know if that's a help or a harm. Quite frankly, you're probably better off, Zelensky, not being able to talk to Joe. Where was he at the last 9 months after Russians moved 70,000 troops to your borders and he did very little to help you? Despite the $350 million arms package that was brought forward, that was not the effort of Joe Biden, but actually Congress. Well, Nancy Pelosi has finally woken up in the House of Representatives. U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said that the body is exploring legislation to ban imports of Russian oil. Well, it's about time, 2 weeks after the fact and 9 months after the fact. Why are we buying oil from Russia? And Congress also intends to enact a $10 billion aid package this week, which is what Biden called for last week. So where's it at? What are you waiting for? Why aren't you working the weekends? People are dying. Children are living in shelters. People being slaughtered on the streets. Surface-to-surface missiles are destroying apartment buildings, airfields, gas pipelines, nuclear power plants captured. And what has Congress done? You had a weekend to make this decision. Get off your duff. They claim they're going to enact this emergency funding this week as part of the omnibus government funding legislation. And quite frankly, I don't understand why we have to pay for Joe Biden's foreign policy failures, but hey, there you have it. Joe Biden has failed at foreign policy yet again. Let's just run through the short list of things that have happened on Joe Biden's watch. Donald Trump left office. Joe Biden became president in late January 2021. And what happened? Just 9 days later, the military overthrew the government in Myanmar, a military junta. Joe Biden's response? Crickets. Virtually nothing done. Coups in Burkina Faso, in Sudan, in Mali twice, an attempted assassination of the incoming Arab president of Niger. What did Joe Biden do? Nothing. 6 weeks after he became president, Russia moved 70,000 troops to the border with Ukraine last year. What did Joe Biden do? He went on a jihad against American energy, shutting down the Keystone XL pipeline, banning drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and attempting to shut down leases in the Gulf of Mexico, not the Persian Gulf. A jihad against American energy. And then had the audacity after this war started telling American energy companies, don't try to take advantage of this. While he's secretly negotiating with the Iranians, a thugocracy, theocracy that is a sworn enemy of our people and of our nation and a threat to our national security. But just like his friends in the previous administration, he just loves the mullahs in Iran. And so we're buying oil from Iran. And now we're negotiating with the fascist state of Venezuela for oil, dirty crude, which is polluting. Why do we want that garbage? We have lots of energy right here in the soil and under our waterways in this country, shut down by this corrupt regime in DC that makes us dependent on oligarchs abroad and tyrannical rulers. Wake up, world, wake up. Not just America, wake up and see what's going on here. The United States under Donald Trump was the world's largest energy producer and largest producer of petroleum. We produce more oil per day than Saudi Arabia. Can you imagine that? We had dropped to just 5 million barrels a day production under Barack Hussein Obama at one point, the lowest we'd been in half a century. But we've roared back under Trump. Now, it started under Obama, despite his efforts to stop it. It didn't work because of tight oil and shale oil, which made a big difference. The Bakken Reserve just flabbergasted the leftists and the climate change crowd. Russia has snubbed a hearing at the United Nations top court, which is the International Court of Justice. This was an effort by Kiev to get Moscow into a court hearing over the invasion. According to Associated Press, senior U.S. officials have been secretly traveling to Venezuela, as I mentioned a moment ago, in a bid to unfreeze hostile relations with Vladimir Putin's top ally in Latin America, in an effort to keep Joe Biden from becoming even less popular when gasoline prices soar. Putin's invasion of Ukraine shows that NATO needs to spend more in defense. This brilliant conclusion by the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, Liz Truss. She said, there's no doubt the West didn't act early enough or decisive enough. The reality is President Putin did not take the threats of deterrence seriously enough. No, that's not the reality. The reality is that you morons didn't do jack squat. You can't blame Putin for not falling for your weak deterrence efforts. They were ludicrous. Deterrence? What deterrence? 70,000 troops for 9 months sitting on the border of Ukraine? Joe Biden ratcheting up relations and causing issues and stoking the flames of conflict for 3 months, leading to, and then sending troops into Estonia and Romania, a token presence, nothing more than a speed bump. Yeah, NATO and the West didn't do enough. You all slept. So why are you still in charge? Liz Truss, Boris Johnson, Joe Biden, Lloyd Austin, Antony Blinken. Bye-bye. She told the UK Foreign Affairs Committee that what we have to do now is we have to strengthen NATO. Really, this is a country that habitually pays well under 3% of GDP, under 2%, and then tries to claim that pensions are part of their defense expenditures as if that helps readiness. We particularly have to strengthen the eastern flank. Duh. I'll tell you, I love these rocket scientists just come out of the woodwork. We've already deployed more troops in Estonia, but there's more we can do. How many troops have you sent to Estonia, UK? We've seen no report of UK troops there. US troops. United States Secretary of Defense Antony Blinken, the aforementioned person, has assured Lithuania of NATO protection, American support, as he began a visit to the 3 Baltic states. Really? That's sort of implied and stated clearly in the NATO treaty to which they're signatory. Of course, we're going to support them. Why would you tell people that? We are bolstering our shared defense so that we and our allies are prepared, Blinken said Monday, stressing the U.S. commitment to NATO's mutual defense is sacrosanct. Duh. We will defend every inch of NATO territory if it comes under attack. No one should doubt our readiness. No one should doubt our resolve. Really? Really? I doubt your readiness. I doubt your resolve. I doubt your commitment. And I doubt your understanding of geopolitics, Antony Blinken. Nearly 5,000 people reportedly detained in Russia on Sunday. It's not clear where they were detained, whether it was St. Petersburg, Moscow, or otherwise. This from an independent monitoring group, which we cannot verify. Polish government plans to create an 8 billion zloty fund to help your refugees pouring out of the Ukraine. That's $1.75 billion. It'd be nice to have that cash sitting around. How do they manage that? Reuters reports today that Russian shelling has been preventing the evacuation of civilians from Kiev, Mariupol in the east, Sumy, Kharkov in the northeast, Volnikov, and Mykolaiv. This from the Ukraine's foreign ministry. It's preventing safe passage humanitarian columns with Ukrainian and foreign citizens, as well as delivery of medicines and food. Concerns are beginning to grow across the developing world that can't feed itself in the Middle East and North Africa. The war in the Ukraine is sending staple prices soaring as wheat supplies are hit, potentially causing unrest. We've seen bread riots in Tunisia over 2 decades ago, nearly 3 decades ago. Russia and Ukraine supply a quarter of the world's wheat exports. Egypt is the world's largest importer of wheat. Not a good sign. In Tunisia, many people queuing for bread in their sprawling Medina or Old Town. A day laborer said the rising cost of living was leaving him squeezed. There's never any money at the end of the month. I even have to borrow some. Everything is getting more expensive. Brother, I feel you. I feel you. My energy costs have gone up by 60% or more. And for petrol or gasoline, it's over double. It's 280% of what I paid just a year ago. Nearly half of Tunisia's wheat comes from Ukraine, and the Russian invasion has sent prices to a 14-year high. Even though the Tunisian government controls and sets the price of bread, people are still concerned. The Russian ruble has slumped to a new record low against the dollar and the euro, losing a third of its value since the beginning of the year. The ruble was trading this morning at 131.25 rubles to the dollar, 143.3 to the euro. European Union leaders will discuss Ukraine's application to join the 27-nation bloc in the coming days. This, according to the chairman of the EU summit, Charles Michel, who said the EU's solidarity, friendship, and unprecedented assistance for Ukraine are unwavering. We will discuss Ukraine's membership application in the coming days. Yeah, day late, dollar short, and a bit foolish at this stage for a country engaged in conflict that may disappear in the coming weeks. According to officials in Poland, Polish planes will not fly over the Ukraine to support Ukraine's defense against Russia. Marcin Pradzik, a deputy foreign minister, said on an interview on Radio Z that we will not open our airports and Polish planes will not fight over Ukraine. Polish planes will not fight over Ukraine. He reiterated that. But strangely, separately, the government spokesman Piotr Mueller indicated a final decision has not yet been made. The Associated Press says that the decision on whether to send fighter jets present a risk and was a very delicate matter. Also, of course, we know here a couple things under consideration, actually foolish talk within NATO and amongst government officials here in the States about declaring an EU or NATO no-fly zone. That's insane. Ukraine and Russia, neither one of them are members of either organization, and to intrude as an outside interloper would not bode well for security in Europe across the board. The other issue here is the United States apparently is going to compensate Poland for every Russian or Soviet era built jet fighter that will be given to the Ukraine. How that's going to be accomplished, one wonders. It'll be backfilled by F-16s, although right now they're going to have to give them some F-16s that are not designed for export. So they're going to get access to some sensitive U.S. capability in the interim. Poland, a NATO ally. So there you have it, folks. Let's talk about where the front lines are today. Conflicting reports. The United Kingdom's Defense Intelligence, with an unclassified graphic they're releasing every day now. Russian troop locations and advances today, the 7th of March, from Defense Intelligence in the United Kingdom. You can see that their information is conflicting. They, a few days ago, reported that forces from Crimea in the southeast had linked up with Donbass forces. They've retracted that over the past couple of days and now are saying simply that Mariupol has been encircled. You can see continued attacks as they pick up Poltava, famous battle that the Swedes fought in against the Russians centuries ago. That's on the map there, having been attacked. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant was attacked. Mykolaiv, Odessa in the southwest. Kherson, of course, has already been captured. Mariupol has been captured for forces coming out of the Crimea. Troops are continuing an effort to try to link up. And look in the northeast here, you see that salient once again as Russian forces seek to close off the gaps of Ukrainians trapped in the northeast. And then you also see the effort to encircle Ukraine, and Zhytomyr, located to the west, has been coming under attack from airstrikes. That's the UK Defense Intelligence, which differs a bit from this map produced by the Institute for the Study of War. This one here shows suspected Russian advances in the dotted lines where there's been Russian aircraft or Russian ground vehicles spotted, Russian ground vehicles in particular. And then you can see the areas that have been captured by the Russians after nearly 2 weeks of conflict. Relatively speaking, it's not a huge chunk of Ukraine, but it is concerning in the southern part of the country where the nuclear power plant was captured and Kherson has been captured, cutting off nearly all Black Sea access for the Ukraine, Odessa being the one major place left in the south there with access to the Black Sea. Once forces link up, as they appear to be on this map, from the Donbass and from the Crimea, they've encircled Mariupol, and they'll begin driving northwest towards the heart of the country. The same thing happening in the north, the northeast, where forces have been consolidating and pushing back Ukrainians who risk being encircled and really should consider falling back to Kiev to defend the capital. And that's the current situation in Ukraine, folks. On today, the 7th of March, 2022, day 12 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. World condemnation and opinion is against Russia firmly. There's censorship of Russian state media around the globe. Only a few outlets are still showing it online. Ukrainians are suffering mightily from Russian attacks, surface-to-air missiles, and other things happening in the country. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll catch you here next time for the next update from Chris Wyatt on situation in Ukraine.